Greetings and salutations, everyone. Hello there, one and all, to yet another one of my videos. In fact, the very first video of the new year. Not, of course, counting my red versus blue videos. But, anyways, let's get onto the topic. Today I've decided I'll be talking about each individual Horde leader and what their future might bring. This will be both from the current PTR of patch 7.3.5 and parts of the book Before the Storm, and parts of my own speculation. So if you do not wish to hear any of these spoilers, I'd highly advise you to leave now. For those of you who do not care for spoilers, let's get right into this. In the battle for Azeroth, one of the main factor of the expansion is the war between the Alliance and the Horde. There have indeed been times where we've put our pasts behind us to focus on our futures. When facing against such forces like the Burning Legion, the Scourge, the Twilight's Hammer, and so on and so forth. But with the final act of the Burning Legion, the final act of Sargeras, it has left the planet of Azeroth in turmoil, and the two factions in a frenzy to claim the very blood of the world that they all stand on. Sargeras' final act has splintered all chance of unity and placed the world at great risk. We still know very little on how the war begins, but the blood of Azeroth, the burning of Teldrassil, and the loss of Lordaeron are the three main factors we've been pointed to on how this all starts. We, however, are not here to discuss how the war begins, but of the leaders of the Horde and what their roles will be in the battle for Azeroth. Starting this off, we have G. Firepaw, who is the current leader of the Hwao Jin and the Horde Pandaren. He is a man of few words and honestly few actions, since taking up this role when inducted into the Horde by former War Chief Garrosh Hellscream. Most of G's actions are simply told in the Wandering Isles. Honestly, he has the most reasoning out of anyone to not really want to be part of this war, or even the Horde itself. He was nearly executed based on inaccurate information during the Siege of Orgrimmar. He is in a romantic relationship with Asa, the Pandaren leader of the Alliance. He is a Pandaren, which most of them are probably going to be neutral going into this war anyways, especially after the incidents on Pandaria. And he also didn't really do anything in Legion besides training some children with his girlfriend, and maybe mention that the Horde shouldn't be fighting with the Alliance, or the Alliance shouldn't be fighting with the Horde when Vol'jin was dying. This all being said, he stuck around and is in the Horde embassy, though all he is doing is meditating silently. If I was to guess what his purpose might be for the time being, I'd imagine he would make for a great diplomat between the Horde and the Pandaren on Pandaria. Maybe even the Hosen as an allied race, perhaps. He could get the Monkey King, the leader of the Hosen, or perhaps just Rico, to get the Hosen people to join the ranks of the Horde, as he is in the embassy and it would make sense for him to help bring in an allied race rather than just sitting there. Sadly, Blizzard hasn't done much with G before, and he might be doomed to repeat this, as the Pandaren got a huge spotlight during Mist of Pandaria, and weren't positively received, sadly. But I'm an optimist for G. Firepaw, and hopefully he will have his time to shine both as a leader and as a character. I can honestly see a Romeo and Juliet styled romance between him and Asa, or at least a secret negotiation between the two trying to make peace between their two factions. I mean, they technically already have that, but it's never been blown out of proportion quite yet. I honestly hope that G has more of a spot as a leader in the future, but this is all speculation, and we'll just have to see for ourselves. Next we have Rokhan, currently speculated leader of the Dark Spears. For a while now, it's been debated as to who might be the leader of the Darkspear tribe since Vol'jin's demise. Many people assumed it was the Darkspear's champion, Rokhan, and with great reasoning too, from him being the lone troll to congratulate you on prestige, to him being the most notable Darkspear character. Truly there are not enough notable Darkspear characters, sadly. There was even at one point a possible game master confirming that Rokhan now led the Dark Spears. I believe that Rokan's first act of Leader of the Dark Spears will be heavily a part of bringing the Zandalari into the Horde, as you will soon learn that many of the leaders in the Horde all have a part into bringing the allied races into each of their respected factions. I also believe that he might have a hand with Thrall, as he was the former Warchief's best scout, in helping Vol'jin out, as it's already been mentioned that both Thrall and Vol'jin will have a role to play in this expansion, and I am one of those people jumping on board with Vol'jin coming back. And if not that, I imagine Rokan will have a big role as representing the Horde on Zandalar, when trying to sway King Rastakhan or his daughter into joining the mighty ranks of the Horde. Rokan, also being a Shadow Hunter, could have some interactions with the local Loa on Zandalar, and the notable Darkspear ones, like Blanc Samde, which could also tie in with the Return of Vol'jin's story. It would also be great to see Rokan and Kul'Tiras lurking about and scouting, as he is one of the few notable characters who has experience in fighting the Kul'Tiras people. Speaking of which, I would also, of course, wouldn't mind a return of an interaction between his best pal, Rexxar, and the two reminiscing the glory days from Warcraft 3, and then promptly kicking ass together. Seriously, we've not had a Rokan, Shen, and Rexxar meet up ever in the World of Warcraft. Now, I also don't know if this will mean Rokan will step down at some point should Vol'jin come back from the dead, which is heavily possible. But if he doesn't, I do hope they'll show Rokan's inexperience as a leader, but also his skill as one of the Horde's veterans. I'd love to honestly get a little bit more of his own story with him as a leader, as we don't know that much about him. But it just might get overshadowed by Vol'jin's return. But hey, he's in the embassy, and I think that means he might have a role to play, at least with the Zandalari joining the Horde. Alright, next we have is Jester Gallywix, who is the current trade prince of the Bilgewater Cartel, basically the leader of the Horde Goblins. Surprisingly, one of the few leaders whom I have mentioned before, who has done very little and is finally getting a role to play in Battle for Azeroth. Now, from the information that I can gather, he is one of the first to jump at the opportunity to obtain the blood of Azeroth, known as Azerite, and has almost no interest in the allied races, so I don't think he'll have much of a role in recruitment. He then shares this information privately to both you and the player, and Sylvanas. Now, the cinematic, or in-game cinematic, that shows this has not been shown, so we don't know the full details quite yet. Whether or not his intentions on gathering the Azerite are exactly positive, it has Sylvanas on board for it, which I personally assume it's because the Azerite might have the power to do exactly what the Valkyr or a Year is capable of, and more large clusters. Or perhaps Gallywix will even blackmail Sylvanas somehow with the Azerite. I don't think that would be the very smart decision, but who knows. On another hand, it could just be the most potent mineral on the planet, and it would be equivalent to 10 of the mana bombs that Garrosh had used on Theramore. But I personally believe it is practically the same as the Will of Eternity, just in smaller doses, and we've seen what a single vial of this stuff is capable of, aka creating the Sunwell. We also know that we'll be revisiting Kazan as a dungeon, and I would not be surprised if Gallywix is heavily involved in the story of that dungeon, likely of him returning to Kazan and having us collect some valuables and get rid of whatever, so that he and his goblins can retake Kazan for the Bilgewater Cartel, very similar to Gnomeregan, which perhaps Mekatork and the gnomes are there for the Alliance story, or perhaps an unlikely alternative is Gallywix is the dungeon boss itself, and is either captured or killed. Personally, I think a dungeon wouldn't do Gallywix much justice, but they've killed big baddies in dungeons before, sadly. Personally, I see Gallywix as someone taking a rather antagonistic role on the side of the Horde. He's not someone I'm very fond of, and so far Blizzard hasn't really done anything to change my opinion on him. It would make sense for Blizzard to push him as someone for the Alliance to take out, and maybe even the Horde, if they play their cards right. Especially if Gallywix is one of the instigators to the fight between the Horde and the Alliance. And luckily there is a multitude of goblin characters who could take up the role of Trade Prince should Jester here kick the bucket. This would also fit rather well with the Worgen and Gen being the instigators for the Alliance, and the Horde taking out Gen as the Worgen are beard race to the Goblins. Blizzard has also said we might see some of our racial leaders ending up as bosses at some point. If Battle for Azeroth includes the death of the characters Gen and Gallywix, sign me up. But any other racial leader and gladly decline. But hey, maybe they'll prove me wrong and actually make Gallywix likable after waiting to do something with him for years. Alright, so while editing this video a number of times due to issues I've been having, Blizzard blessed us with what went down between Gallywix, kind of, and Sylvanas, and also the rest of the Horde leaders. I want to note that most of my editing is almost done, and this is very last minute, so if I don't mention this engagement much, that is due to the timing of this recording.
War Chief, if I may offer a few words. It is with both pain and pride that we gather here today. Pain, for many brave heroes of the Horde fell against a terrible foe. And pride, for against all odds, we have vanquished the Legion. We bled. Now we heal. We mourned. Now we celebrate. For the Horde! For the
Horde! War Chief! A moment of your time.
No doubt Gallywix wants to push his latest money-grubbing scheme.
Rats scurry about their business.
And get eaten if they're not careful.
What is the rat up to?
He does keep sending more goblins to Silithus.
Nothing good has ever come out of Silithus.
This will change everything.
I told you!
And the Alliance knows nothing of this?
Don't worry, War Chief. I got people on it.
So, we got Baine giving an amazing speech here about the loss and grief of Vol'jin, and many others, but also of the victory against the Burning Crusade. Giving a lot of credit to what I am saying about him, and also him possibly becoming War Chief in the near future, if he keeps this up. I just love the speech he gives, and that Sylvanas remains mostly silent but pleased with what is going on around her. I love Saurfang and Baine's interactions about Gallywix and Silithus, and let it be known that Baine made Varrock choke on his drink with that comment about Silithus. That was amazing. Also, complete side note, but it sounds like they no longer have the original voice actor for Saurfang, which is a great shame. I'm very curious on who that troll woman was. Her name escapes me for the moment, but I think we have seen her before. I think during the Zul'Gurub storyline in patch 4.1 in Cataclysm. I'm also very curious as to why Rokan was not present in the cinematic, but perhaps he had better things to do. Or maybe they just didn't have his model ready. Who knows? We then see Gallywix being the rat, though an incredibly humorous rat, humming a wonderful beat as he pulls Sylvanas to the side to introduce her about Azeroth. Now again, it's hard to tell what his intentions are here, but as Baine points out, it's probably just to gain more profit, though his motives could be ulterior as well. Sylvanas, as stated, is clearly impressed by the Azerite and wasn't blackmailed, so we can narrow that out. Now that this has been covered, we will continue with the rest of the scripted video. Overall, a very well made cinematic, and I'll be posting my reaction of it shortly. Or soonish, hopefully. And no, I'm not going to make any note of the Alliance one, because this is about the Horde. Possibly one of the most eyebrow-raising ones that I have listed is Nathanos Blightcaller. Currently, he's the Banshee Queen's champion, and even possible love interest. You're probably asking yourselves why he's even on this list, as he's no racial leader and is just a racial champion, something similar to what Saurfang used to be for the Orcs, or what Varimathras used to be for the Forsaken. And you're right in the regards that he is no leader of any of the Horde's races. Yet. But this is a speculation for a reason, as I believe that the role of Sylvanas Windrunner is something the Horde should have had for quite some time. And I am not referring to the fact that Sylvanas should have been Warchief a while ago, but basically I believe that the Warchief should not have dominion over one race and then the rest of the Horde, but rather just have leadership over the Horde. A great example was with Garrosh. He had both leadership over the whole Horde and the Orcs, something that went to his head and many of his loyalists. It's been shown already that power corrupts and that the Horde cannot have another Garrosh. I would have much rather have preferred if Garrosh had just led the Orcs in this case, and that Thrall led the Horde as a whole, but in this situation it's reversed, and that Sylvanas should just lead the Horde, and Nathanos should just lead the Forsaken. I'll be getting into detail with this a bit further when I get to Sylvanas, but basically I believe that Sylvanas will be putting Nathanos in charge of the Forsaken after the Desolate Council has been dealt with, or at least mentioned. As Sylvanas doesn't have eyes and ears everywhere, and it's clear that betrayal can happen with ease when you're unaware. Like the Wrathgate and this Desolate Council. She'll still definitely care for the Forsaken, but she'll have to look at the Horde's whole interests now, and not just herself and the Forsaken, as a means to separate herself from what happened with Garrosh. With this, Nathanos will have a much bigger role than just being Sylvanas' right-hand man and champion, and he will lead the Forsaken from now on with Sylvanas' counsel. Now, there's plenty of more of where Nathanos' character can go in the future, and most of it is his push with the rest of the Horde against the Alliance. He, like Gallywix, while probably not as antagonistic in comparison, will be the most thrilled over the war between the Horde and the Alliance, as both he and Sylvanas took great interest in wanting to attack Stormwind and probably taking out Genn, whom ruined the Forsaken's future in Stormheim. So he'll be a form of general of sorts for the Horde on the front lines, with probably Saurfang as well. I could also, however, see Nathanos as a racial leader for the new Forsaken that could be the new allied race, Dark Rangers, who are human or elves raised through the same process that Nathanos went through in Dark Mirror. It would go well considering that Nathanos is also at the Embassy, and it would make sense for him to lead the new generation of Forsaken under Sylvanas. Next we have Varrock Saurfang, current leader of the Orcs and veteran of the Horde, through many wars on both Azeroth and Draenor. This is probably also one of the most tortured but badass characters in Warcraft in my opinion. Besides maybe Jaina and Dezco, those characters are really sad. He's lost his eldest brother Broxgar to Sargeras himself, and his only son Dranosh to the Lich King, whom he also had to face in battle since he was raised from undeath by the one who had killed him. Yet, still he serves the Horde and doesn't whine about it, at any chance he gets. A true badass and a true orcish leader we need right now. Now, Varrock is going to take a much larger role in Battle for Azeroth. However, I'm not so sure he'll be one of the leaders who brings in an allied race, as diplomacy apparently isn't one of his strong suits. That seems to fall more under Eitrigg or Thrall. I imagine one of these two could bring in the Mag'har, or perhaps something else. Perhaps Rexxar could bring in the Mach Nathal. Anyways, despite this, he'll be a great boost to the Horde morale and strength when faced against the Alliance, as he has the most experience out of anyone in the Horde against them, as he's been fighting the Alliance since the First War, and he has been one of the commanding officers under Ogrim as well. So his military might will be the most helpful in the times of war. As for what Varrock might be doing in Battle for Azeroth, well, we luckily have both the book and the cinematic to indicate exactly what he'll be doing. But I'll of course throw my own spin on it, with speculation. With Sylvanas' current reposition as War Chief, Varrock keeps sharp eyes on her, and making sure each step she takes is for the Horde and not herself. Just like the rest of the Horde and probably the world, Varrock is not letting a Garrosh be repeated, and Sylvanas knows this and acknowledges it. Now, here's where some of the speculation comes from. In this picture right here, where it shows Sylvanas and the two characters who I believe are Nathanos and Varrock, just based on their silhouettes, are walking towards Teldrassil. I for one still don't think Teldrassil was done by Sylvanas or the Horde, as Varrock would not stand for it and likely would end her for the aggression, as Varrock is an Orc of Honor and upholds it before any battle, and the burning of a World Tree doesn't seem like something he'd check off on his honorable list.
Honor young heroes, no matter how dire the battle. Never forsake it.
So I assume that Sylvanas, Nathanos, and Varrock were trying to stop the ignition of Teldrassil, but were too late and were blamed for the incident. It also struck me as odd that after the burning of Teldrassil that Saurfang would be defending Sylvanas at her very own home of Lordaeron or the Undercity, when Orgrimmar is where he should be. I want to remind people that Draenor Saurfang, Varrock's son, while he wasn't killed in the Blast of Plague done by the Forsaken, but rather the Lich King, he still could hold a large grudge against Sylvanas for the death of his boy. But is clearly out there on the front lines protecting her land and ordering the Horde soldiers there, and is even rallied with the rest of the Horde by her cheering of "More than the So in Battle for Azeroth, I do think Varrock will have a large role to play as the Horde's military leader, once again, when faced with the Alliance. Personally, I think he's going to be the one leading the charge against Stromgarde in the Arathi Highlands. Next we have the leader of the Blood Elves, Lor'themar Therin, and his Council of Elves. So, from here on out, there will be less speculation and more factual things that were brought up from the PTR, but that won't stop me from speculation near the end. So in Battle for Azeroth, there are two new types of elves on the horizon, joining the factions. There are the Shal'dorei, whom we were met with in Legion, who are the elves that have been sheltered inside of Suramar for ages until now. They are led by First Arcanist Tharisra. They are to join the Horde. For those of you who are confused as to why the Nightborn joined the Horde, it is more so goes with the Blood Elves have much more in common with the Nightborn, and when the Kaldorei went to help them against the Legion, it wasn't exactly under the best circumstances, and Tyrande did not do a very good job at first impressions, so she has made it easier for the Nightborn to make their decision. I would like to point one more thing before I continue. At the embassy, it is Liadrin who is there instead of Lor'themar, currently in the PDR, and is the one whom brings in the Shal'dorei into the Horde, back during her actions during Legion in Suramar City, and actually going over to invite them to Silvermoon, under the behest of Lor'themar Therin and Sylvanas. I bring this up as I believe that Liadrin is a new addition to the Blood Elf Council, as it has the Farstriders, Magisters, and now I believe the Blood Knights, who are of course led by Liadrin. Just something I wanted to point out.
Greetings, Lady Liadrin. Champion, welcome back to Suramar. I am pleased to receive you under more pleasant circumstances.
It is good to see your city free, First Arcanist.
For that, we owe you both a great debt. You proved instrumental to our cause.
The Horde was proud to fight by your side against the Burning Legion, my lady.
I must admit, when I first learned of the Horde, I was skeptical that we would share common ground. I thought our kin from Kalimdor would make obvious allies, but their arrogance and mistrust soon proved otherwise.
Arcanist Thalysra, I remember where your order stood in the War of the Ancients. How do we know you won't betray us and become the next Elisand, the next Ajara?
We do not intend to be slaves to the Nightwell. We seek to drive the Legion from Suramar and put an end to Elisand's oppression.
The Kaldori will fight to see the Legion defeated and the Nightwell destroyed. Beyond that, we shall see where Elun's wisdom guides us.
It would seem Elun's wisdom guided her away from the bond we once shared. So be it.
The Sindori are also scorned by Tyrande and her prideful lot. Yet for many ages, her people slept in dens or hid in trees while my people fought to save this world.
The Alliance feels too walled off, too cloistered. My people will never endure such stagnation again. That is why I am grateful for your invitation to Silvermoon.
And then there are the Void Elves, known as the Rendori, that are a new edition of Void Elves led by Illyria Windrunner, eldest sister of Sylvanas and Barisa. They are to join the Alliance. Basically, they are banished Blood Elves for dwelling into the Void and endangering the Sunwell. I think that if the Void did not harm the Sunwell, the Void would have been a welcomed addition. But then again, the Void is very risky and had led to many incidents in the Warcraft lore. Both these elves, interestingly, have an intertwined story to the Blood Elves in Battle for Azeroth. Lor'themar invites both Illyria and Thalysra into Silvermoon. Thalysra as an honored guest to hopefully join the Horde, and Illyria whom is still hailed as a hero of Silvermoon's past, but is there hoping to bring her brethren back into the Alliance. Both are treated with honor and a lot of fairness at the start, while Illyria is treated with it until Lor'themar learns of why she has returned to Silvermoon.
First Arcanist Thalysra, and honored guests, welcome to Silvermoon.
It is a pleasure to visit your fine city at last. Thank you for extending the invitation, Regent Lord.
Please, call me Lor'themar. But where are my manners? Allow me to introduce another guest, Lady Illyria Windrunner, a hero of Silvermoon's past.
An unexpected honor, Lady Windrunner. Silgren told me of your courage during the campaign on Argus.
The honor is mine, First Arcanist. I do not mean to intrude upon your visit. Perhaps I should return another time.
Nonsense. Whatever you came to say, you may say in front of our guests.
As you wish. I come bearing an offer from High King Anduin
I had hoped your visit was motivated by a love for Silvermoon. Instead, you come at the behest of the Alliance's Boy King. How disappointing.
Cutting words, Lor'themar. Are they yours, I wonder? Or has the dutiful ranger I knew become the mouthpiece of your war chief?
You doubt my words, yet how can we trust your own? Do you deny that the Lords of the Void whisper to you? Did you not surrender yourself to the shadows on Argus?
It seems the offer I bring has been anticipated and spurned. Very well. But before I leave, I have one request. It has been 1,000 years since I set eyes upon the Sunwell. May I visit it once again?
I advise against it. We cannot trust that she will not—
Whatever she has become, Illyria is a daughter of Quel'Thalas. I will not deny her pilgrimage to our most sacred site. First Arcanist, you and your retinue would be welcome to join us.
I would consider it an honor to see the Sunwell, Lor'themar. And I prefer that my friends call me Thalysra.
Romoth, kindly open the way for us. Please, follow me.
But things go awry when Illyria's Void starts the show, and the Sunwell is in jeopardy. is thanks to the hero of the Horde, the Blood Elves, and the Nightmourne that is not full out destroyed by the stirrings of the Void. Illyria and those that dwell into the Void are no longer welcome and are banished, which makes it easier for the Alliance to honestly abduct them into their ranks, while Tharistra officially joins the Horde with her Nightborne following afterwards, which also gives the Horde access to a part of Suramar as a mini-city. As for speculation, however, this goes more towards the factor that the Alliance has the majority of the Eastern Kingdoms currently, and Illyria quotes, "Silvermoon will one day stand with the Alliance," or something along those lines. So, I think at some point the Alliance is going to try and move up north to take the lands of Quel'Thalas for the Alliance. Definitely by force. And I think in the same time the Horde will be trying to push for the Draenei's own lands, quite possibly. So I think that the Nightborne and the Blood Elves will unite and fight against the Alliance, invading their lands, as the Draenei and Lightforged Draenei could be faced with the Horde. Or, alternatively, we could just see the Horde defending Quel'Thalas against the Alliance. Could give Blizzard more of a reason to update Quel'Thalas and the Ghostlands. We're almost done here. Next we have Baine Bloodhoof. Once again, Baine Bloodhoof is heavily involved with the High Mountain allied race. Now, I am really glad we're getting some things with Baine in Battle for Azeroth, because he hasn't done much. Now, before I say anything else, I really hope we see a romance blossom between Baine and Mela. They'd be rather cute together. Alright, moving on. So, in the questline for how we obtain the High Mountain as an allied race, High Chieftain Baine Bloodhoof invites Mela to a banquet, in a means to convincing her and the rest of the High Mountain tribe to officially join the Horde. Ebonhorn himself comes with Mela to Thunderbluff, which if you forgot, Ebonhorn is also one of the few remaining black dragons who is also not corrupted. And because Ebonhorn left High Mountain, some wards are broken that then unleash the Void, and it attacks them all, and causes the banquet to be short-lived. Ebonhorn and Mela must return to High Mountain to tend to the wards that were holding in a dangerous general of the Old Gods, but Baine chooses to come with to help out Mela in taking out this dangerous foe, along with the hero of the Horde. Now interestingly enough, Ebonhorn, whom I claimed earlier to be cleansed of all corruption, becomes corrupted by the Cathraxi that he was in charge of keeping behind the wards. Makes you wonder if Rathian is not immune from the corruption, as we had first thought. Baine, Mela, and the champion of the Horde free Ebonhorn by ridding the general of the Old Gods for good, and Mela is proud to join the Horde and reunite with their kin in Mulgore, if they offer such companionship and strength when things are so dire. This means the Horde gain the strength of the High Mountain and also most of their land, such as Thunder Totem. It also means the Horde has an ancient black dragon on their side, which will be very helpful in many situations. This could also mean that the river trolls that we all see about High Mountain could also join the Horde, since they are also a part of the High Mountain tribe in a way. Looking past this information that is data mined, I think that Baine will unite the Tauren and all cousins and offshoots like the Yongle and Tonka, and possibly even the Grim Totem with the newly added High Mountain under one banner, making him truly the High Chieftain of the Tauren people, which could also mean more allied races in the future for the Horde. I also think that the friendship between Anduin and Baine will surely be tested in Battle for Azeroth, as their people are once more pinned against one another, and they've certainly grown a lot since the last time they've exchanged words. I still think neither Baine or Anduin are for the war as some of the other leaders might be, and we might see them trying to mend the bridges that have been burned by the respected factions. Certainly Baine and Anduin, out of everyone, would see the threat once it's shown its face. It would be great to see Baine raise his voice on these matters of peace and war, and become war chief with such actions, and have Sylvanas step down. But that's what I truly wish to happen, as I think Baine is both deserving of that title and the development. I really look forward to seeing where the story might take him. And lastly, Sylvanas Windrunner, current war chief of the Horde, and leader of the Forsaken. Man, has my perspective of her changed since the last time I spoke about her and her role as war chief. Granted, I have commented on her multiple times, and even recently with the whole Desolate Council video. I spoke about her each time a little bit with the other various leaders of the Horde, but I'll be going in full depth here. In Legion, we got a brief idea of what Sylvanas as the leader of the Horde would be about, and initially many saw her approaches similar to Garrosh, if not worse, and more self-centered than anything. Now, while I viewed it as her trying to ensure that the Horde still had a leader and plenty of Forsaken for the future, I can see her goals in Legion as definitely more personal than anything. I even thought her role as War Chief was not going to last much longer, whether it was going to be by the death penalty, please for the love of Fenrir, no, or the simple step down from that role and let another wear that burden. However, I think both the book Before the Storm and the PDR of patch 7.3.5 and the expansion of Battle for Azeroth will change the Dark Lady from her current attitude and Legion, which is basically more concerned for the Forsaken than the Hordes. Right at the start of the preview chapter, we get a look inside of Sylvanas' head about the situation of being War Chief, and surprisingly, she does not like the role, as it puts her in a place that cannot operate as she normally would in secrecy. Just as Vol'jin had said,
"But you must step out of the shadows and lead."
She damns Vol'jin and the Loa who put her in the position, as she would much rather be in Undercity, planning the growth of her Forsaken people and her own immortality. But the situation deems her to act as leader and lead the Horde to glory. And as stated with Saurfang, she has to watch her step as War Chief and not repeat the same actions that Garrosh did. Not only does the Banshee Queen have to worry about Saurfang, but she also has to worry about a new group called the Desolate Council, who use the freedom that Sylvanas offered them to speak out against her. I've spoken about who I think the Desolate Council is, and what their plans exactly might be in my latest videos, but in short, they're an organization against Sylvanas' practices for immortality, which in my opinion, I don't think they're very right in the head, and their intentions are not as pure as they sound. Going back to the preview of the novel, Sylvanas and Nathanos' eyes are both set on attacking Stormwind, which is most likely due to their weakened state after the war against the Legion. The fact that Genn and his Worgen, who ruined Sylvanas' plan in Stormheim, are possibly in that city, and the fact that the southern part of the Eastern Kingdoms is the biggest threat to Sylvanas' own lands, taking out Stormwind is almost a sure win for her and the rest of the Horde. At least, that's my own take on it. There would be another reason why she wants Stormwind destroyed so badly. Next comes with the patch of 7.3.5, where we're introduced to the mineral known as Azerite, which in simple terms is the most valuable thing popping out of Azeroth right now. In my own perspective, it's the equivalent of the Well of Eternity, but isn't as powerful unless grouped in numbers. Gallywix, as I stated before, convinces Sylvanas that the Azerite is ideal for the Horde's future, which causes the Alliance and the Horde to start fighting over the substance. I can imagine that one thing leads to another, and it causes more damage than it should have. Possibly Teldrassil gets burned, or someone dying from either side, possibly Malfurion from the Alliance. Either way, war is in full swing, and both Teldrassil and the Undercity are burned or broken because of it. I still believe the Desolate Council, Azerite, and Teldrassil are all connected somehow, and that the Horde burning it is a complete misunderstanding. But again, that is my belief. Now, Sylvanas is the War Chief of the Horde, and she has lost her equivalent of home, as well as the home that her people had called, to the Alliance. Understandably, she is pissed off and was already ready to wage war against the Alliance. Perhaps all she wanted was to kill off Genn, so that problem would finally be snuffed out. I don't know. Hard to say right now, but there was little reason to dance around it any longer, and war should be ignited from both sides. I believe that Sylvanas' role as War Chief does in fact change her, as it already has started to show such change. Originally, all she had cared about is the Forsaken's future and her own, but now her home is in ruins, or rather in more ruins, her people are divided, and she is left to pick up the pieces of the Horde, and ready them for a full-on war against the Alliance. I do think she cares about the whole Horde as a whole now, as it would seem the Alliance are done sharing Azeroth, and want the Horde completely wiped off from it. No longer is the Horde just more arrows in her quivers. I think they will become her people, and she will be the war chief of the Horde that they need right now. Henceforth, she will call upon those that will join her, and she will use the resourceful skills of the other leaders to help unite the Horde and spread its wings throughout the world of Azeroth, to the Zandalari, the High Mountain, and the Nightborn, and through many other races in the near future. With her duties of war chief keeping her rather busied, she will leave Nathanos to unite the Forsaken people under him. Whether the Desolate Council are still an issue when he steps up to lead is always possible, but even if they aren't, he'll still need to pick up the broken pieces they left behind and fix it. This also provides a means to not making someone too powerful like Garrosh was, who had control over the entire Horde and his Orcish people. Sylvanas will definitely still have a connection to the Forsaken people, but her duties will be to lead the Horde, at least until another steps up to the place of War Chief. Right now we'll be seeing a slow development from Sylvanas. At first it will be a very heated exchange between her and the Alliance, but I do think it will show her own form of careness for the Horde and its people, in her own way. It's definitely not going to be the way that Vol'jin or Thrall, and certainly not Garrus's way of doing it, but it will be the way that the Horde leaders and the people of the Horde can respect, I think. As I don't think any of the current Horde leaders would settle for a dictatorship again, as for whatever reason they approve of this current war and Sylvanas' actions against the Alliance. I do think she knows other forces are out there, and once they reveal themselves, she'll have the Horde focus on that. There are of course other complications Sylvanas will have to deal with as well, I am sure. There's the whole situation of her eldest sister Illyria's return, and how she will handle how her own sister will treat her for siding with the Horde, and, well, being undead. As Illyria is heads over heel for the Alliance, after all. There's also the whole deal with Halia that was never addressed, and hopefully will be addressed at some point. There's also the whole possibility of Bolvar returning, or Kel'Thuzad returning. We could see a Sylvanas vs. Scourge story at some point, again. But my main point for Sylvanas is this. I do think they're going to change her character, and I think those that do not like her right now need to relax and let Blizzard flesh her out. I think the community overreacted over Garrosh, and we could have had a great leader in him. And I see great potential in what they can do with Sylvanas, just like I saw the potential that they could have had with Garrosh. Let's just wait and see what they could do. Hopefully it's not predictable, and hopefully it's something good. Anyways guys, I've been talking for a while, about 10 or 11 pages now, and I think this is a good stopping point. I'm sure there are plenty of other things I could speculate over on what the Horde leaders could do in the future, but I'll save those for a future video. I'm Skull Shorties, and thank you all for watching. I hope you have a wonderful year, and I see you all again soon. See ya!